Yeah, I am proud to be a member of Kiwanis myself. We don't have COVID to thank for a lot of things, but one thing that COVID did for me was, Chad Bunn showed up on my door and said, they're waiving the membership or the entry fee to Kiwanis, and so love to sign you up and pay my monthly dues. And so me and Mayor Mendenhall and his dad, John, we all came in at that time. And though we don't, always have the time, but, to be to everything, it's great association. So love my association with all of you here in the Kiwanis. So thank Chad for thinking of me. He called me a few weeks ago and said, hey, please come down. One thing he wanted me to talk about, which is really cool, is we're doing a Spanish Fork University. And a few years ago, we hired a public information officer for Spanish Fork, and he's been awesome. Nick Porter, he helps us just with all of now managing Spanish Fork's, image and what we put out there and the communication to the public. And he came up with this idea of Spanish Fork University. And so he brings in, everybody signs up and it fills up quickly when they have it sign up. I think we're on our third or fourth round, and it's roughly like 8 weeks. Every week you have something that you are a part of. Has anyone been a part of it? No. Carolina Herron's in it right now.
That's what I heard. How many people?
And I'm going to say roughly 15-ish.
20?
It seems like something like that.
Is it on Channel 17?
It's all adults, and we have the graduation up at the golf course, the clubhouse there, and have a little ceremony after. But they go to the police station, and they learn and ask all questions, budgetary, anything. And then they go down to the sewer treatment facility, and then they go down to SF-17, and all of these different things. And it's been such a great tool to show how transparent Spanish Fork is. We've always, tried to be transparent and show people, and it's been awesome to invite people in and give them just a little bit of taste. One night they are a mock city council, and we have like a situation where they pretend to pass an ordinance and maybe have like the public hearings and things that go on. And one thing I've learned this year, as I threw my hat in the ring for county commissioner, was how confusing I think politics can be, just, as a result of, people saying, well, how do you get involved? How do you, how does all this happen? And the county commission race is party affiliated. So I had the convention and I had the Republican primary. The 3 times I ran for city council, there's no affiliation in Spanish Fork. There's 5 council members and a part-time mayor, and people may ask if you're Republican or Democrat, but it doesn't matter as far as your affiliation when you file. But I've learned, you learn so much about the political process, the caucus system and things when you're really in it, right? And I don't think anybody's ever asked me in my first 3 campaigns what party I was affiliated with. I've always been Republican, and I've always, been registered as such. And so no one ever asked me that in my 3 campaigns.
Conservative you were?
Yeah, conservatism, right? They do ask, but it
Sorry.
You're good. But as a council member, it sort of just, it's not really the issue. The issue is, what is the best decision for Spanish Fork? That's what we're going to make. We arm wrestle it out. Then we go home, and nobody seems to, our current council and mayor, take their ball and go home. If they're upset about a decision, we can talk about it like adults, and that's the secret sauce, I think, because, we debate and disagree, and then the decision's made, move on. I have so many people that ask me so many questions about how to get involved, and things like Kiwanis, things like being on the Chamber of Commerce, things like asking the mayor to be, if you could be on Planning Commission and things like that. That's what I tell people, please run for city council, run and put your hat in the ring, and that's, like I say, what I decided to do for county commissioner, not knowing, that I would have, strong support, and won the primary, not by a big margin, but enough. And so I don't have a Democratic challenger in November, and so I'll be the only choice on that ballot and then be sworn in January. And then I will vacate my final year as a city councilman in Spanish Fork. And so the council will appoint someone like they did when Councilman Scobes was deployed to Washington, D.C. And the council, we appointed Shane Marshall at that time. But we had like 13 people apply and to that, and it's a special meeting. The remaining 4 council members vote for the individuals. It's like an interview process, and so that will happen here in the next couple months to replace my at least final year, and then I assume that person will probably file as well and run for the next 4 years. So I presume there will be a large number of people because it's an easy way to get on the city council. You don't have to buy signs, you don't have to, campaign. You just got to go convince the remaining 4 city council members, and so that's going to happen coming up. There's a lot of great things happening in Spanish Fork. You thanked Channel 17 last night. We approved the contract. They're going to build a new building for the SF-17 building as they expand and grow. Are having fiber throughout our community. That was just such a great asset.
What will that be?
It's going to be down by the public safety building on Center Street. So just across the street from where they are now. Yep, to the west. Yeah. So that's exciting. Our SF-17 people are wonderful. We love Travis and Pete and all of those people that help us, have internet and this, our own TV channel. So Friday night I'm sitting in my living room watching the Dons play Salem Hills, and me and my wife are looking at each other like, this is great, we are watching the game just like it would be a BYU game. It's just such an asset to our community. Last night we also approved a contract for our new sewer treatment facility. We're building, it's a new system. It cleans the sewer water much better. So what we put into Utah Lake will be much cleaner. And new technology, we've just patched the old plant together, and so we planned well. We share that facility with Mapleton. They have roughly 20% of that, and so that project's on board. Many of you know we had a truth and taxation hearing in August. And that was in order to build a new rec center, aquatic center, and so that's on the docket coming up. Planning for that, as well as
Are you ready for questions yet?
Go, you bet.
So why are some people opposing that?
Yeah. So the opposition basically they've ran what's called a referendum, so they can refer the decision to increase the property tax. So when we first talked about a life center 7 years ago, the way that was funded was a general obligation bond. So that was what you got in the mail and you voted yes or no, and the public overwhelmingly voted no for that. And that had to be funded strictly by property tax. That bond, that loan would have been, secured just by property tax. So 7 years, over the last 7 years, we've got together and we've since the RAP tax has been approved since that time, and that is the penny on every $10 spent. So people that are not from our community are spending dollars, and we're bringing in over $1 million a year, and that has to be used on recreation, arts, and parks.
Yeah, this is a nice little, Spanish Fork really gathers from all of the areas. We're talking even South Provo, from Payson, Woodland Hills. It's the South shopping.
More than 50% of that. So I guess what I'm saying is we found out a different way to fund it with sales tax, RAP tax, and then the portion of property tax. With the general obligation bond, it would have been $17 on the average home a month. Now it's $4.90.
So have you been able to save that money and roll it every year, or have you had to spend that every year?
We have rolled some of it. Yeah. Yep. We've funded everything that the Arts Committee, for the most part, has really asked for, and and other little projects. We've put some into the All Abilities Park, but that's a big element to the passing of it. So the opposition to it, those gathering signatures for a referendum, will be if they get enough signatures, then it would be placed. The decision to raise property tax, the $4.90. So that is what is being, is the opposition. Pardon?
Where will it be built?
So the idea would be that we own the property by the sports park,
Where
those
it was
homes.
originally gonna be?
Uh-huh, yep,
Okay.
yep, in that area. And new senior citizen center in there as well. So we'll improve that and then, yeah. So library will be finished next year. And that's an exciting building. That will also house finance for the city as well as the council chambers. And so that'll be an incredible building, a neat building. We have the new transfer station being built by the jail. So the current one's in Springville, and now it'll be just over the border, and it is in Spanish Fork, but it's just north of the jail, and so it'll be an all-enclosed garbage transfer station. Better for our recycling product, better for taking, much more growth and product. And we share that with Provo, Springville, Spanish Mapleton, Salem, Woodland Hills, Genola. So that's a neat project. There's lots of fun things going on. So the question is Utah Lake, and so as it pertains, I always say, I know what we get if we do nothing. We can see it today.
We got the same.
And so I think doing something is I'm in favor of. I'm not in favor of islands at this point because I haven't seen, when I build a road in Spanish Fork, and I don't physically, but I used to work for Staker Parsons, so I understand what goes into making a road. I don't know what goes into making an island, and when that fails, it's on the taxpayer, right? And so I haven't seen a plan yet for the islands that I have got behind. But I don't know what that looks like, but recently the Phragmites that we mow down, I don't know if you've heard of Wakara Way. The Wakara Way, they put some cows out there and let them eat them down, and it was like, this is amazing, right? Like and they're like shocked that because by the time our county employees mow it down and they go back to start over again because they're taller than
They're 7 feet tall.
Yeah, exactly. And so they've really cleaned up. Last night, Councilman Marshall mentioned, that Sandy Beach is just really an awesome asset. They've cleaned it up. There's bathrooms and the Phragmites are gone. And so there's a lot of things that we need to do to improve it.
Can we lease that out or someone do that on an experimental basis? What occurred?
It was, I believe it was a neighboring farmer that said, hey, watch this.
Let's try it.
And they fenced off some cattle, and the cattle were able to keep it down.
This is what I'd like to see. I'd like to see Utah County make a deal and take Utah State Park there at the lake at the end of Center Street and take it into the county's possession and get the state out of there because they haven't done anything out there. It's pretty awful. It's pretty awful.
Mm-hmm.
Where is this sandy beach you're talking
And
about?
it should be the most beautiful park in the whole county,
Yeah.
and it's the most awful one.
It's just north of Lakeshore, so would be like west of Palmyra, northwest of Palmyra. So we recently had a regional transportation meeting with all of the elected officials in South Utah County. We met at the rodeo arena, and we just spread out maps, and we said, look, this is what it's going to look like when we grow, and they showed, what happens if they put that causeway, and not only the causeway over to Saratoga Springs, but also one that comes sort of over Geneva, and over that Provo Harbor, and really the connectivity of some of those things that just have to happen for us to be able to. I mean, have you been on Main Street in Spanish Fork lately? It's just ridiculous, right? And so we're recently, in Spanish Fork, we've got really good east to west flow. Center Street, 4th North, 8th North, right? Canyon Road. But Main Street's kind of it. So currently we're really working on like the north to south flow. Of the money allocated for roads in Utah, Weber and Davis County combined are still less than Utah County, but they got more money. Utah County got 10%.
Yeah.
So that's one of the fights that I will take on, saying, guys, hey, we're here. Like Davis and Weber County, those two counties getting more money than us. Like that one example with roads, us getting 10% of that, road fund was just not acceptable. We're the second largest county in the state, and we're getting overlooked by many, many other counties. And I mean, I don't know how else to say it other than it's just, Mayor Leifson taught me, you go up to the Capitol and you say, hey, we bang on the door. they weren't bringing the improvements to I-15 this far,
Yeah.
but they went and banged on the door and said, they've got to get down here. And then they do the Highway 6 improvements, right? And so we've got to have that representation.
Win all the time.
Yeah. And so
Are you willing to be that guy?
it's what's nice is currently at the legislature and the Senate in Utah, it used to be 80% had served as a city council or a mayor, and 20% had not. It's exactly flipped now. And I feel like the experience on the council, the 11 years, helps me to understand cities' needs. And I think, as I look, none of our commissioners have ever sat as a council member in any of their cities or as mayors. And I think that separates me because I have a lot of great
It'll be
relationships.
immensely helpful.
So I hope so, Dave. That's definitely something that's on my list. Yeah.
I was for the 5-member commission, and they
Yeah.
voted it down. I just don't think it's right for 3 people to make the decisions for such a big area.
Yeah.
Would that ever be able to come up again, or?
Yep, it could. There is still a time frame in which it cannot, but I think that's another 2 years. But I was in favor of that, and my opponent was not. And so, but I too see the value in 5 part-time city council members in Spanish Fork. We have day jobs, and we love our community, so we serve. And 6 of us, if you count the mayor, it's $115,000 is what we cost, basically. 3 commissioners are $1.2 million a year, And so I'm looking at that going, it's $1 million in excess for what we get. And so my argument is, I will never say no to more representation for less taxes, So I'm very in favor of a change of that. And I was very vocal about that from the start. And
It's more representation too.
yeah, the representation, I think that it should be.
It's back to the more local allocation for the people.
Yeah, me and Commissioner Sakovic are from Spanish Fork, so you'll have 2 commissioners from here. Commissioner Amelia Powers Gardner is from Pleasant Grove.
She's from here.
Originally, she lived out of West Mountain, but now she's in Pleasant Grove. And so, we don't have districts, but that would also give an opportunity to say, all right, you've got a representative from here, out maybe Eagle Mountain, Saratoga, Orem, Spanish Fork, Santaquin,
Would it
So-
really cost that much more money?
It's currently costing us that much more money.
Oh, so why were they against it?
So they got out and they said, we don't want to look like Salt Lake. They said Salt Lake has a full-time mayor. And I think that was not really the proposal that was on the board. But the argument that when they really went out against Prop 9 was it's just more government because it's more people. And so people just thought, and there really wasn't much of an effort, to educate people. And so people voted it down,
Yeah,
the Prop 9.
There's so many other counties that already have 5 that are smaller in this state.
Weber,
It's very
Wasatch
scary.
County,
Wasatch,
Cache County,
Yeah.
they have a council, and you can have a mayor format, or you could have a full-time manager. And I think that Spanish Fork's secret sauce is having a city manager. Dave Euler, Seth Perrins was under Dave Euler for his last 10 years, and now Seth has taken over as the second only city manager we've ever had in Spanish Fork. And I think he'll be here, right? When I'm gone, all the other elected officials are gone. And so he keeps that train moving in the right direction the way that Spanish Fork has. I think that's the secret sauce. I think the county will be good.
For that, but I'm like, they're held accountable. They're at will.
Yeah,
They're at will.
Yep.
I can't understand that argument sometimes.
It's what works well for our cities,
I know.
I think. And so I think it would work well for our county. And so I'm glad you brought that up. Yeah, it's something that if we don't vote on it, doesn't change, at some point there is a law that changes it. We're roughly at 650,000 population for Utah County. When we hit 1 million, there are certain things that trigger that. And so it'll force it to have to be into that. But until then, we'll keep seeing what we can do to, if we can, work with legislators or whatever we need to do to change that. So, yeah.
I think it's good governance.
I do too. Like I say, I think it's more representation for less money, and I'll never say no to that. And I think you get a better quality, because I think Clyde asked, what am I going to do with security insurance? Fortunately for me, I have my wife will help manage my book, my secretary, Joanne, in my office in Spring, I have an office in Springville, and then our main office here in Spanish Fork, and we just have people that can manage it. Otherwise, I wouldn't have the time, right? And then you just become it's a career, and I think you don't get as good of candidates because it becomes a career for people.
Well, here's my advice.
Oh, thank you.